Persona 5 was the best game of 2017, don't at me Breath of the Wild. The Persona franchise has become one of my favorite series in gaming, having my start with Persona 4 Golden on the PS Vita, rest in peace. I fell in love with the game's story, characters, soundtrack, turn-based combat, and its most exceptional aspect, its style. All these elements together make an addicting RPG, and Persona 5 is no exception. Here's the thing. Before Persona 5, the Persona games were mainly seen as a niche series. There is some debate whether or not it really has become mainstream. I would have to say that it has. P5 is the best-selling game in its franchise, and I mean, would any of the other previous installments be contender for Game of the Year right alongside gaming's most well-known titles such as Mario and Zelda? Just saying. With the massive success of Persona 5, us anime fans were just waiting around the corner for the anime adaptation to be announced. I remember enjoying the Persona 4 anime, so I was actually really excited to see Persona 5 get an anime of its own. Also, with the game's success, I can only imagine Atlas outsourcing the anime adaptation to one of Japan's best studios.
No!
P5A is really bad. Let's start with the characters. They're all cardboard cutouts of themselves. Ryuji is obnoxious and is helpless. Morgana spouts out exposition. Wait. Why did they change the main character's name? There's way more to these characters than what the anime is doing for them. The game does an excellent job showing how each one of them are victims of bad circumstances and how society turned them into outcasts. The player gets to spend time with each character learning about their personal problems. As the player, you get to see where their strong will comes from to fight against the unjust of society as the Phantom Thieves. What we have is a game adaptation that at its core is paced too fast, so the characters and story don't get the attention they deserve. I know what you're thinking. The game is 80 plus hours and the anime only has 24 episodes. A1 has to condense the story and blow through it. I see where this opposition is coming from, and it's true. There's too much of Persona 5 to adapt in 24 episodes. So, if we were to get an adaptation of Persona 5 within 24 episodes, we would have to make some sacrifices. About half the game is grinding through dungeons to get to its final boss. A1 is already aware that they'll need to cut this out to keep the story going. I personally think it would have been good for A1 to take this even further. Cut out elements that were more for the purpose of gameplay than actual story and characters. Through the game you have the option to go to the metaverse, and I would just say maybe cut that out in the anime. It doesn't actually have any real importance until the end of the game. Maybe get rid of the mechanic where the main character gains more persona. Just have him use Arsene for the whole anime. He already has a great design and animators can get used to animating him. You might be thinking getting rid of stuff like this would be ridiculous, but are you honestly happy with how A1 has handled the adaptation so far? Well, it doesn't even really matter. The anime is 6 episodes in, and as the time of me recording this, there is no sign of the show slowing down to make these sacrifices. But unfortunately, there's a lot more wrong. You guys already know what I'm talking about. Okay, if I'm being honest, the show doesn't look that bad when nothing's moving. Far shots of characters are unpolished and just look really goofy, but the worst is definitely the fight scenes.
What the hell is that?
I actually burst out laughing when I saw this atrocity. One of the game's visual high points of style is the game's finishing moves by each of the characters. But this? What the fuck is this? I was so flabbergasted that I actually attempted to animate the scene myself. I'm definitely an amateur. The most animating I've done is like on 3 projects, and those were like for 30-second things. With the little time that I had to animate, I felt as though if I was given more time, and especially if I was getting paid, I could have done a better job. It's not just the finishing moves, the whole fight looks really bad. Look how she literally goes between 2 different frames. The use of 3D doesn't make it look any better either. It just looks really bad, guys. Like, that's not how the body works. A1 Pictures is a studio known for cutting corners, but oh my god, they've cut so many corners that's literally a fucking circle. The Persona 5 game has an incredible OST. You know how when you played the game, the OST would kick in and it would have a real punch? The soundtrack added a lot to fight scenes, and it also added a lot to when characters were just talking. In this anime, it's still the same amazing soundtrack, but it's just not used correctly. In the game, it was mixed perfectly. Surrounding sound effects and dialogue never overpowered one another. But in the anime, it's kind of drowned out by everything else that's happening. I'm also just amazed how it's just thrown on top of scenes without really any care of incorporating it. Honestly, the OST is probably the most enjoyable part of the show, and A1 somehow still lessens its impact. This leaves me with some questions. Who worked on this show? Because it doesn't seem like there was that much passion at all. I mean, like, I know that there's probably some talented people who worked on it, but the game was super successful, and the game has now garnered an audience that were anticipating a really cool anime adaptation. I just don't understand that you have this show to make that you already have the characters for, the story, the soundtrack. You already had everything for it. You have the audience. One of the world's most stylish games is bound to an anime that has one-layered characters, a rushed pace, terrible animation, bad utilization of a great soundtrack, and is voided of any creativity that the original game was oozing with. Great job, A1. You yet again made another bad anime. It would be a miracle if this adaptation somehow got better. I'm not really surprised it turned out bad, but I am surprised at how bad it turned out. Well, maybe in 30 years when Persona 6 comes out, it'll be adapted by Ufotable. Their animes are really pretty to look at least. Oh, and if you're someone who watched this video but has never played Persona 5, what are you doing? Go play Persona 5.